Hey, what is up YouTube? Prophet here doing another Mermail deck profile. This is because of my Saturday locals, which I topped against Medolce's and the new anti-meta, meta Shadows, which was fully complete, and I even had to go up against two Cephalons in one go. But I'll explain some of my card choices. This isn't the most amazing Mermail deck outgoing because right now I'm on a budget, but this is so far what I've got for it. So I'll try not to. Camera's not really that stable as it's between my legs, but try to do my best. So here's how it goes. Standard list of 3 Vistius. Not really any explanatory there. 3 Lins. No explanation needed. 3 Pikes. Nice Pikes. This is to get to my Genix Undine, which I run 3 copies of, which makes it very useful in this deck. It also gets to my marksmen. I rarely ever use it to get to my guns, because that's what my Tierce does if I already have my Osha players in hand, which I've only had my Tierce Osha players at the locals twice, but I rarely ever went into players that frequently. And then my final main Mermail that everyone sees, 1 Megalobe. Now, I only run 1 Megalobe because I rarely ever needed it. I only pulled it off if my opponent had something big and I just needed to get past it at the time, but I rarely ever made it because twice in the finals I went up against Medolce's and he Tiara Masu'd it twice, so I rarely ever made my Megalo. I mainly went into my Tierce plays and then go for Gaios, which was my answer to most things this format. Instead of Drago or Big Eye, it was mainly Gaios that was the answer. Then for one-off Mermails, the other one-offs, 1 Osha, 1 Gund, and then 1 Mermail that no one ever sees, Hildy. Now, everyone knows the Osha gun play. Osha and gun, those don't need explaining, but Hildy, if the camera zooms properly, there we go. When it is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Mermail from hand. So, it's got nice utility, as it says, when it's sent to the grave. So that means from deck, by tidal, sent by Mermail's effect on field, or what I now use it for is I will make my engineer plays with her and Osha, and I'll leave it attached to engineer, and then when I need my plays more, I will sometimes detach her from engineer, and then I get more plays, except it's during my opponent's turn, so they'll be going halfway through their plays with maybe some junk plays to make librarian in that. They make librarian straight away. I just go detach from engineer to change one of my big monsters to defense. Then I get Hildy's effect to summon Pike or Terge, and then I start my plays during my opponent's turn, which then screws them up. But besides that, it is to top it all off for the Mermail count. It's 1 Terge. Now, I want to run more Terge in this build, and I probably will in the future. It's not really in my Mermail build that I try and focus around 40 deck count, because I believe this is a 42 count, so in future I may put more Terge in, but until then it's 1 Terge. Then for the Atlanteans, 2 heavy infantry and 2 marksmen. Just front and back plays. Its main answer to everything, since at my locals everyone is hyped up for the Shooting Quasar coming out, so everyone goes for the junk plays. So whenever they make Shooting Star or whatever, I have my answers to most of their plays further back and front. That's why I wanted to run more Terge, so I could actually utilize these more instead of having to put in some more instead of having to put in salvages, but until then, and then to top it all off, 1 Atlantean Dragoons. So that's the Atlantean count, and then my tech choice, which I will give credit here. This was Jamie the Kid's idea, which I used except tweaked a bit because I did like the version of 3 Gen X Undine and 2 controllers. Now at my locals, everyone was wondering why I didn't do 2 and 3 or 2 and 2, but it was mainly because I didn't want to draw into these. Only twice in my rounds of Swiss did I actually pull either one of these. I never pulled both of them at the same time, I only ever pulled one, but it was always the same thing. They would wonder why I ran Undine, and then I would go Pike, summon Undine, and then they would go, ow. And their big monster is then gone because of Undine sending infantry, or I pop their back row with marksman, and then it leaves them wide open. Then 2 Aqua Spirits, I playtested it at 3, didn't like it 3. Sometimes I did actually side this out because of my side deck. I sometimes sided it out when I wanted to go for Imperial Iron Wall, so I could get more of my plays off, because when I played against Medolces, they used the hoot cake thing, and Imperial screwed them up. I also went up against a Monarch version, actually used Macro, but then 2 Beautiful Princess, this went into my Pike plays quicker. No, this was, at my locals, it was hyped up and everyone uses it in Mermails, except I didn't see the hype as much. I like it for its actual ability for 1-for-1, which it gives its target, but many people don't actually know what this does, and what it actually does is when it's normal or special summoned, you can banish it to special summon a level 4 or lower fish type monster from your deck. So it lets me go into my Pike, and Terge plays much quicker. That's one of the reasons why I might keep Terge to 1, because I can get to it much quicker with Beautiful Princess. And then finally, to finish off my monsters, 1 Tidal and 1 Dragon Ice. I made Dragon Ice a few times, but everyone was surprised when I ran it, and it was the answer to quite a few plays. When I gold sacked for Tidal, they wondered what my target was when I said for its effect, and I pulled off Dragon Ice, and then they would look at me thinking, why? But then I would summon Dragon Ice during their turn by discarding an infantry or a marksman, and I would clear their field and then have a good defender, so I could make Void Ogre. And then for spells, 1 Soul Charge and 1 Message in a Bottle. Now, most lists that I saw ran 2 Soul Charges in, except I only run the 1 Soul Charge. I run it Message in a Bottle because it is my other quicker play, which actually is the answer to many problems, and I do not have to pay the life point cost as long as I exceed. And then for the standard stuff, double MST, Gold Sark, 1-for-1. I'm running double salvage, even though I've seen people only run 1. I don't see why. I like 2 salvage. And then to top it all off, 3 spheres and 2 breakthrough skills. I use breakthrough skills. I would like Fishes because spell speed 3, nothing stops it besides wire tap, and I get a plus anyways by putting banished stuff back. But breakthrough skills good until I get that. And then the extra deck, standard Leo. I run Void Ogre instead of BLs. That's just personal preference, because if I have no cards in hand, it stops spells and traps. Black Rose, Gungnir, 2 Gaios because I'm on budget, and 1 Master of Blades. I then run 1 of my Engishki. Now this one actually stops fire and ice hands because it does not let them hit the grave, it shuffles them straight back into deck instead. Then I run the 2 Ragnar Zeros because most of the decks at my locals ran field spells that bumped up their attack, so it just gave me constant pluses. Engineer for the plays, Triage for plays, Try I never made. I prefer to make it with materials and Levier for loop plays, which I will put up on another video. And to top it all off, Leviathan Dragon. That's the main and extra, and then this was makeshift side, which I made on the day. It was never complete, and it was never intended to be complete, but 2 Jinzos, answers to all the hat decks that I went up against. I just summoned Jinzo and they just cried. 1 Mobius. I'm preferring instead, on the actual day I ran 2 Mega versions because it was a quicker out. I side in the second Megalobe as my option plays if I want to, if it's runs less back row and it's just, if my opponent runs less back row, it's quicker out. Then 1 Squall, I sometimes use it, very rarely. 1 Torrential Reborn, I use it as answers in case my opponent actually does main deck Dark Hole and things like that, which I don't see why they're sided. 2 Imperial Iron Walls, there in case my opponent goes for Mac